My new show is called Sustain, and it has two parts to it. One part is about the Peace River Valley, which is the northeast corner of British Columbia, and the other part is a continuation of a series I was starting some time ago about Tsukiji Market, which is the biggest fish market in the world in Tokyo, Japan. The Peace work came out of a trip I went on in August, the end of August, the beginning of September, with a group called BC Kairos. And they sponsored it, and I went as a photographer and to help out if I could. And we went on a bus, and we visited several communities on the way to the Peace area. And then once we were there, we visited farm workers, First Nations, and ranchers and other people, and talked to them about issues that were happening in their communities. So one thing I found is that it was some of the most beautiful countryside I'd ever seen. There's a river meandering through valleys, bluffs that you can look down, grassy bluffs, and you can see eagles flying right across from you. It's tremendous. It's some of the best farmland, apparently, in British Columbia. And it's big enough that they say you can feed over 1 million people with that farmland. And many people are farming. Some is ranch land at this point, but it could be used as food. They can grow cantaloupe, watermelon. We brought corn up from Chilliwack. They didn't need it. They had a lot of corn. So we really learned about that and found it quite outstanding. It's a different kind of climate around the river. And it's tremendous. So we learned about that, and we talked with First Nations peoples who spoke to us about the fact that BC Hydro was planning to log and flood the area, and that in their understanding was against the treaty, Treaty 8 in this case, that had been signed by their ancestors at the turn of the century. And the treaty says, as long as the river shall flow, as long as the land shall last, you will have your rights to hunt and fish enshrined. And they were very concerned because, in fact, they hadn't been listened to. And they were really worried that their land, the land that we were on and seeing this beautiful land, would be ruined very shortly. So that was an incredible experience to meet and talk with them. And we also met with the mayor of Hudson Hope, and we met and talked with the ranchers and ranchers and who else? Farmers. So, all the people were working together to try and save their valley. During that time, I took pictures, and then I decided after a while I would try and tie in some of the elements of what I'd experienced for a very short time into an art show, because I knew it was coming up. And I began to feel a lot of energy, and I didn't think there was one thing I could do, but that if I tried, I could probably tie some of these elements together with an art show and raise attention to the issue. And the issue being the destruction of the Peace River Valley by BC Hydro. And this $8.8 billion project would be the end for those people living there, but also it affected everybody in British Columbia. And I hadn't known very much about it, so maybe others don't either. So I thought I'd try and bring some attention to it by painting. So the first part of it, I did 3 paintings on Treaty 8. That was an expressionistic, imaginative way of just trying to get images that would share the importance of ancestors, the importance of animals, the importance of their own culture and history, especially, with a new government and people that are telling us that they're going to work nation to nation. And I thought, wow, there's some real richness and wealth in their history that I'll try in a certain way to symbolize. So I did that with the 3 paintings that are larger that you can see over there. And then I do a few of landscapes, smaller ones, but the landscapes that I saw, that I took off of my photographs and made into smaller, richer oil paintings to show some of the seasons that happen there. It has very cold winters. And then I did another piece that showed what they call Christy Clark's legacy, which was the land after it had all been logged, and there's transmitters, and there's fracking grids, and there's machines, and basically it's what's going on now, and it changes daily. It's totally a different scene than I saw when I was there just a few months ago. Totally different, just completely ruined. The habitats and everything's ruined. So that's the beginning of what happens when they flood or dam an area, is they log, and those trees many of them drop into the water, in this case the peace, and they will let off a methane gas which kills a lot of the fish or makes them poisonous, mercury poisoning. So right there it violates the treaty. So anyway, it does many, many things, but kills a lot of the animals, kills the caribou, the migration patterns are all changed, and that was that painting. And then the final piece in this work is 2 First Nations women who are set up camp, and they called it the Rocky Mountain Camp. And where it was in a little bend in the river where the first explorers had come from the rest of Canada over the Peace River to discover British Columbia. And there they had traded furs, one of the posts that they traded furs. And that goes back 17th century, even before. So there's a lot of artifacts all in that area that have never been explored or found. And mostly women set up camp there in minus 20-degree weather to stop them from logging that old growth forest that was in that area. And they lasted 2 months before there was an injunction, BC Hydro injunction, against them. And they're still fighting that in courts. There's still, I think, 8 court cases going on that have not been resolved. That Treaty 8 stewards of Treaty 8 are working with. So that's to symbolize the resistance to this dam. And I thought I think the best way would be to show 2 women, in this case, in the winter. It's true, it's winter a lot up there. And with kind of pale, multicolored, but mostly pale blues, which was a scene of wintertime. So then the next thing I want to just mention is I thought that in the window for this art show, I would try and put a variety of artifacts that I saw there. And not just the window, but you see there's a wagon wheel in the corner. And in the front window, there's a cowboy hat, a really old rusty kettle, antlers, a whole bunch of skeletons of variety of different animals. And there's rocks, I'm not sure what they're called, but they're used to grind corn, and they're Cree rocks. And then birch trees, which are very common up there, and grasses. And I felt that it was also important to put the UN Declaration for Indigenous Rights in the window as well as a small painting of a log house of where we had a barbecue that overlooked the water, the river, and it was just a lovely place to be in, to have a barbecue with a full moon. Yeah, so that's also in the window. There is also a postcard to write to the Prime Minister with, if people want to put their name, and I will send it off because it's free postage, to ask them to preserve the Peace River Valley. And it is a postcard of that painting there. So I hope people fill them out. There's a few now. So the other part of the show, in the show Sustain, is about a continuation of what I did before with Gage Market in Tokyo. And I took it a little step further, where I used a fish image, a fish I'd taken a photograph of in Tokyo, of it's called Kagoshima, which is where this fish is. I'm sorry, I don't know the name of it. But I remember it being very well looked after and wrapped in a newspaper. I took it a step further and saw that in Japan, fish is a real staple. It also is integrated into all the culture. I think in many ways, the workers, the fishermen, the processing is done in a very organized, tender way, and it's exported all over the world. Of course, fish is important to be careful to not overfish, as we've done here in Canada. There's some species at risk, so Sustain seemed to come into that. But I took it to another step and decided that I would use that particular image, the Kagoshima fish, and have the fish in at cherry blossom time, at hanami time. Have the fish wrapped in origami, the beautiful origami work that is done in Japan. And also put the fish in a what do you say, how do you call it, multimedia setting, where there all kinds of things came into it, which was beautiful Japanese papers, fish that were there, some color, and I also introduced haiku that I thought would help the painting. So I did 2 of those, that one and that one, and finished with a traditional oil painting of a castle in Kyoto. And then finished, and after that, just a small picture of flow, which was many fish going down the river, which I thought linked both of parts of my show.